35 years ago today, on October 16th, 1987, Jonathan Richman and the Modern Lovers played Toronto. They also stopped by the Much Music studios and performed 3 songs and were interviewed. The songs are already up on YouTube, but the interview is not. Richman was asked to define his music and focused more toward defining it as international music and music that people from 5 to 6 or 50 to 60 could enjoy. And who doesn't love the Velvet Underground influence stuff that he started out playing? And, you know, famously, he lived on the Velvet Underground manager's couch because he was such a fan of the band. And it spurred him to form the Modern Lovers. And people may or may not know that David Robinson went on to join the Cars after being in the Modern Lovers, and Jerry Harrison went on to Talking Heads. Jonathan Richman is a pivotal, important figure. I'm also proud that Jonathan's currently on Blue Arrow Records, an independent label run out of Cleveland, Ohio, based out of the Blue Arrow Record store down in the Waterloo neighborhood. Great store, run by 2 great people, Pete and Debbie. And Debbie is passionate about cats. And cats are in the store, so if that's an issue, don't go buy records there, but there are cats in the store. She also runs a nonprofit called the Waterloo Alley Cat Project. And it's great. Her noble work for protecting the neighborhood and the animals is wonderful. Thank you, Debbie. Thank you, Pete. What a great store. What a great neighborhood.
Very special treat, and I am able to introduce Jonathan Richman and the Modern Lovers to Much Music. Welcome, people.
Thank you, Laurie. Hello, everyone.
Now, this isn't your first time that you've been on Much Music, is it?
No, as we remember from last time. This is our second time.
You are what the type of music that you play. I mean, I think it's been best described by you, and that's campfire soul music.
Yeah, that's as close a word as any. Campfire soul, something to signify that it's an intimate style of rock and roll music, yeah.
We're seeing a lot more of that these days, aren't we? With bands like, well, getting more intimate, bands like, do you know Crowded House that came through here, and they're forgetting about thousands of watts worth of power and just picking up instruments and playing a game.
I hadn't heard of that.
See, you started something.
What do you know?
You probably have a wider audience than most other rock performers that I know about. I think, do you know who your audience is? What kind of people come and see you?
The thing that would make it different from some other rock groups is we can play for 5- and 6-year-olds without having to change our program. And at the same show, there might be 50- and 60-year-olds in the audience. And again, we would be doing the same show for all those people that would be doing on any bar on a Tuesday night, more or less.
That's a pretty wide appeal.
Yeah, we don't have many of all the different groups, but the ones we got.
I read that you would like to have your record seen in the international section of the record store.
And that's as close as any. If I was going to put myself in a category, you know, in a record store you see international section, and you have the people that sing those romantic songs. Well, the music is rock and roll, and a lot of those based theirs on a jazz kind of format or a French kind of format. But still, I see ours as kind of like that in a different way.
So you have something in common with Charles Aznavour, is that what you're saying?
I like to think so. I might be flattering myself, but we both sing emotionally, let's put it that way.
Well, I think we should roll a video here, and so you can tell exactly what we're talking about. This is Jonathan Richman and the Modern Lovers with I'm Just Beginning to Live. Jonathan Richman and the Modern Lovers on Much Music, and now we have a special treat. They're getting ready to play, but before you do that, I want to talk to you about, I've seen you live many times, and I have this idea that, and I think it's true, that you don't have a set list. You really don't know what you're going to do, and that the verses, some of them are just made up as you go along.
Yes, that's true.
That's high-risk performance, I would say.
I'd like to think so, but actually it's not, because it would be more of a risk for us to use a list. It would get boring. You can't take that risk. That's a very high risk to take.
Yeah. Well, what about when you go and you're making records? How do you get that kind of spontaneity?
Because some of the songs are actually made up in the studio. For example, the video you just heard, I'm Just Beginning to Live, that was, a lot of those parts, that whole thing was made up in the studio. On the newer record, Double Chocolate Malted was made up right in the studio. And, well, I'm about 17, that song was made up. All those songs were made up the day we did them.
Great. Well, that's one way to do it. Okay, well, prove it. Be spontaneous.
Okay, give me
Ladies and gentlemen.
All right.
Okay, you were spontaneous and it was wonderful. You really did it. It happens every time like that too, doesn't it?
And if it doesn't, we're not proud of ourselves.
I think a lot of people misunderstand what you're doing and what you're singing about, don't they?
Yes, Laurie. I will say that's a very good question because, to my shock, they do. They misunderstand. Some people do.
They think that it's all got a cynical tinge to it, or it's a tongue-in-cheek, ironic
Yes.
thing, and it's got nothing to do with that, does
You're right. It has nothing to do with it. But two things to say about that. One is that's happening much less. The peak of that was in the late 70s when almost everything coming out was cynical, so they were misunderstanding it. And two, I can understand why people would. No one wants to be taken for a sucker. No one wants. It's much better for most people to assume, well, they're just fooling, than to assume that I'm just singing what it looks like I'm singing, and that no one wants it to be secretly me thinking, ha ha ha, I took them for a sucker. So I can understand why people are cautious.
You must have had a time, though, if you were playing to audiences, like you say, in those cynical days. I'm thinking of the real heavy punk audiences, you know, the people that you just couldn't get to move or smile or clap or anything. Did you ever have experiences with those kind of audiences?
In fact, we have something we did in 1977 called the Modern Lovers Live LP. And that was it was recorded in London at the Hammersmith Odeon. It was the first time we ever played in England. And this was at the height of people like the Sex Pistols and the Clash and whatnot. And the last tune on the album is me doing The Morning of Our Lives, which is a song, it's one of those songs from the heart. And you can hear the audience screaming for other songs, and you can hear them quiet down by the second verse, but what you can't hear is that if you were there, you would see that here were these people in black leather jackets and everything. They were starting to sway.
Yeah.
So the Modern Lovers often win in situations like that.
That's all they do, though, just give you a little sway, and that's it.
That was plenty. That was all I was doing.
That's big. So if people are going out and looking for your records, which is something they should be doing,
they should take binoculars.
Yeah.
No,
what's the latest one?
The last one out is called It's Time for Jonathan Richman and the Modern Lovers. And I've heard both. I've heard some people say it's easy to find, and other people say it's hard to find. So I really don't know what the situation is like in Canada, but I've heard both sides of it.
And you're playing here at the Rivoli in Toronto until Saturday night?
Yes.
So if everyone wants to go down and take a look at that special kind of campfire soul music, they know where to do it. Now, before I get you to play again and be spontaneous,
okay,
I will spontaneously offer you some clean clothes. No, this has nothing.
Can we use these?
Yeah.
It'll save you a trip to a Toronto laundromat. Here you go.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
Well, you're very welcome.
I'll bet we are.
We are.
So I'm hoping that you will play once more and take us out to commercial.
Okay.
What are you going to play?
We don't know yet. How about Vincent Van Gogh in G?
In G?
Yeah. Thank you, Laurie. Thank you, everybody. All right.
Thank you for watching Cleveland Live Music. I can't play a lick. That's why I'm a taper. Thanks for watching the channel and making it grow. If you want to subscribe, that'd be appreciated. Patreon and GoFundMe would be appreciated. Maybe I could get guitar lessons.